Run him. Stay on him. That him, boy. Angela, that's a sack on the ball. Good job.
Take me back into another time when we were still in love, a different life.
All right, folks, welcome to the Brothers Blitz podcast.
Woo! We made it through July. Hall of Fame game was last night. That got rained out like a baseball game.
True, yeah. So I am Jordan, and here we have Fox, and we are here to talk about football, I guess.
Oh, is that what we're here for?
I guess.
I thought we were like blitzing like a tennis player blitzes drop shot. I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
That's not a thing.
It's not. I don't know.
I've watched and played plenty of tennis, and it's not a thing. You don't blitz anything.
No, you don't. But you said we're here to talk about football?
You can go up to the net.
So I was confused. Yeah.
Blitz a drop shot? That doesn't even mean anything.
I don't know. Shut up.
Like a sim language.
Makes
sense.
Anyways, football. Hall of Fame game last night.
It was. So obviously the biggest talk is, I'm sure, is will CJ Stroud get replaced? Because what's his name had a good game.
Oh, you mean Caleb Williams?
No. Well, him too. I think maybe both.
Well, I was going to say,
when
Brett
you look at the
Rippon looked good. He
stats,
threw 3 touchdown passes last night.
When you look at the stats, hold on, I meant to pull it up, but
is there a quarterback controversy now in Houston and Chicago? Wow, this is crazy.
Davis Mills really working back.
Davis Mills. There you go. Yeah, he looked good too.
I was thinking about.
That was crazy. I looked at the box score earlier this morning and went, "Wow,
yeah,
look at Brett Rippon and Davis Mills."
I know. So yeah,
crazy.
Davis Mills was 10 of 13, 102 yards and a touchdown.
And I think Rippon was like 11 of 16, 160 yards and 3 touchdowns, something like that.
11 of 15, 166, 3 touchdowns. A 148.9 rating. Just sit Caleb Williams, just let him learn under Brett Rippon.
Yeah, just let him learn under Brett Rippon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. By the way, we're obviously joking. I hope that's cool.
This is like the actually we should talk about that for a second, just because this is my favorite thing about super early season stuff. Getting into training camps, things like this. It's just people freaking out because Brock Purdy threw 4 interceptions at a practice,
in practice, yeah.
And they do that, and it's not the only one. This happens with, some people are doing it with Drake Maye too at the Patriots.
Yeah.
Although that one makes a lot of sense because I'm just everybody said he wasn't pro ready, so
right.
And in this case, I think it's 2 different stories when you talk about a Drake Maye, Brock Purdy. Drake Maye, it's still not concerning because he's brand new, and also they said. It's so many scouts. Actually, I think Rich Eisen brought this up, but it's just so many scouts said this is the least pro ready, even though he has a lot of tools. There's a lot of upside.
Yeah.
Least pro ready.
He's a project.
So yeah, it's everybody expects him to sit at least for a portion, if not the entire year. That's sort of the expectation.
Right.
That's why you have Jacoby Brissett, because he can start. However long you need him to start, he can start, and you'll be fine.
Right.
And even if the Patriots,
and he's serviceable.
Yeah, and the Patriots don't need to be good. They do not need to be good.
Right. Yeah, that too. Right. And the Patriots aren't really going to compete for a division title because if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and the Jets do what they did on defense last year, now having Aaron Rodgers, Bills are still the Bills and the Dolphins are still the Dolphins. They're not even close to sniffing the playoffs. So yeah, who cares if Drake Maye takes 2 or 3 years to develop? Who cares?
Yeah. But even if it's just a year of sitting,
right. Even a year of sitting, right? You're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. It doesn't. It's so many. But yeah. So on the Drake Maye side, it's people wanting him to be the savior and whatever. Brock Purdy, it's more of confirmation for people who wanted it to be, who want to see falter. I'm no, but I think what they're doing, and he's actually kind of said this, is he's talked about how he's wanted to be more aggressive and more.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Did you see that article? Because that was really
Yeah.
cool. That's where he's like, everybody throws interceptions in practice because you're trying stuff.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work in practice, then you go, oh, okay, that's probably definitely not going to work in a game. So we're not
Yeah,
gonna try
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. So it's just like they're trying stuff, and that's where you want him to be, because it's like
Right. That's
it's
where you want
only
teams to experiment. Right.
it's
It is
only
practice.
yeah, and it's only year 3 for him. So like this is like so
Year
it's like
2 as a full starter.
first
by the
year,
way.
yeah, but first year you've got like you're just learning, right?
Right.
Second year, I mean, one, he didn't even have a training camp,
No.
really. So
Yeah, because he was still recovering from his
yeah,
injury.
yeah. So he did some, yeah, there was a lot of limitations there.
Right.
But even still, even if he had a training camp, it's like, but second year, it's like you're making sure, first year you're learning, second year you're like stability, like, okay, I've got it solid. And it's like, yeah, now's the point where you're hoping that that person can start experimenting, can start seeing like, how far can I push it? Where,
Yeah. Right.
what are the
Right.
limits to this offense, to what we
And
can do? And
right. And I wanted to say that even like people forget, even though it's crazy that it was only crazy, I guess, that it was 1998, but Peyton Manning's rookie season was awful.
oh yeah, yeah.
Awful.
I mean, that's
And
one.
nobody remembers that now because he became Peyton Manning. But like that first year in particular, and then his second year, not the greatest because he was still learning, even though he was like an all-time talent. Even all-time talents have to adjust to the league.
Yeah, well,
So
that'll be interesting for the rookies in
yeah,
general.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just
That is
funny.
one development of the NFL that I don't like is like jumping off rookie and young quarterbacks so quickly when you look at the past.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I get I feel like actually the teams it seems like at least recently have been kind of sticking with people.
Mhm.
I think fans are almost always ready to jump off. Though I mean there are some exceptions because the fans did seem to really like Justin Fields.
In
So that
Chicago, yeah, they did.
yeah, that was definitely one where people were like, and then I mean I think there's a good amount of Dolphins fans when they're just like they've had so much terrible quarterback play that Tua's like they're like, yeah, I mean, we're not necessarily like over the moon about Tua, but we're very happy to have him.
Right.
You're just like,
He's at least competent enough, like he can lead us to win.
yeah, and it's like, and I think sometimes like that doesn't get talked about how important it can be because people go, well, Tua's not going to win you a Super Bowl, so you should just move off of him. I'm like, okay,
Well, yeah.
well, one out of 32 is the who's winning a Super Bowl every year. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
just keep that in mind. 1 out of 32, um, and it's like when you're an organization that's been floundering for so long, there's so much value to winning. To just like
Yeah.
we're winning, we're in the
Right.
hunt, we're getting in the playoffs, which means we have a shot, even if you don't think we have a shot. But once
Yeah,
we're in
right.
there, who knows what happens, right?
Who
Things can
knows
happen.
what happens?
But we're
But
in there.
I watched a little short last night where Kerry Collins made it to a Super Bowl.
Right.
With a great defense team. Like, I'm sorry, but if he can lead a Giants team with a good defense to a Super Bowl, Tua can at least potentially lead the Dolphins to a Super Bowl, even if they get blown out
Yeah.
or just straight up lose.
Yeah.
He can at least possibly get them there. If Kerry Collins can
Yeah.
do it,
And I know, like, and I think,
almost anyone can do it.
and I think some people would say, like, well, it's a different league and stuff. It's like, but it is, but it's not. It's not that. It's not so much, because I
Well,
mean, you also have I mean, like,
well,
you have the Ravens winning with not with
Trent
Flacco, but
Dilfer.
Trent Dilfer, yeah. And it was just like, I mean, of course, that was a historical defense.
Right,
But
right.
still, it's just like I'm gonna take Tua over both Trent Dilfer and Kerry
Collins
So
every single day of the
you
week.
know.
Well, and I don't like it when people use that argument of the league has changed because it doesn't actually apply because when those guys actually won their Super Bowls, you could knock the crap out of the quarterback still.
Yeah,
And those guys still made it.
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, well, now I would definitely take Tua.
Yeah.
over those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, so that I think the off-season stuff, not the off-season, the training camp stuff's funny to like what people overreact
Yeah.
to,
Rounding
what
all this
people
back, folks. That's where we started.
decide, but what people decide is a big deal, what they decide isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And then of
Yeah.
course everybody feels optimistic and everything too, but
Right.
which is fine. I mean, that makes sense. They're the teams and they want to feel optimistic.
Right.
Oh, have you been watching any of uh the Giants,
The
I
Hard
can't
Knocks.
yeah, I can't why can't I think of words? I can't
I
think
don't
of
know.
any
No,
words.
believe it or not, never watched any Hard Knocks episodes.
So haven't watched. I've watched all of the Giants ones, but as far as like other Hard Knocks, I haven't watched a bunch of all. The Cowboys one. I watched a good amount, and it was not that interesting when they did the
Mm.
Cowboys. And a lot of people I think talked about that because it was just too planned out. Like it felt
Oh yeah.
like the whole point of what Hard Knocks is supposed to be is sort of like you get this raw stuff. You just kind of you're just
Right.
in the room, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually been really interesting with this though, with the Giants one, is because it's an off season. So they're doing like 3 different Hard Knocks this year. So they're doing this one, which is the off season one. They're doing the
Mhm.
normal Hard Knocks, the during training camp one. I can't remember who they're following for that. And then during the season, they're doing like the entire NFC North. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Because they did
cool.
during the season last year with the Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
Which was kind of interesting. I watched a few episodes of that, and that was kind of interesting. But the Giants one, so this is it's interesting with the Giants one because it's an off-season one, so it's leaning up to leading up to free agency, and then going through until the draft. Like
Oh, wow.
so it went through. I wish you could have done a little bit more with the draft, but the leading up into free agency and things like that was super interesting. One
Mhm.
for a few reasons. One, it's just fascinating to see the teams talk about players, who they're keeping, who they're not. I mean, like there's a lot of Saquon Barkley talk that goes on in it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's just kind
Can't
of.
believe he went to the Eagles. That's
I
crazy.
know. Well, so John Mara, there's literally a moment with John Mara talking to Joe Shane, the GM, where he's like, well, it's just not the Eagles. As long as he doesn't go to the Eagles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like where he's just like, because John Morrow's like really, he's like, I'm not gonna sleep well if we don't have Saquon. He's like, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
So there was definitely some tension there of
Yeah.
him being that, and I will say it's hard. It's hard because I don't know what other GMs are like. It's like there are
Mhm.
some that are like more in the spotlight that you kind of have a feeling for them, but you still
Yeah.
don't really know. So like this got a better feeling. So I feel bad. I'm gonna feel a little bad for saying this, but like I'm watching it and I just feel like Joe Shane is not right for the job.
You feel like he's in over his head?
Yeah, he just doesn't. He feels a little, a little out of his element is what it feels like.
Yeah. There you go.
And it's not like
In over his head, out of his element.
yeah, I don't know
I
what
think
he's
they're
like.
both kind of the same.
Yeah,
They're both synonyms.
yeah, it's just like there's just moments within it where it just doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. It could just be like, no, this is how most GMs talk. This is how most GMs do their phone
Right.
calls and things like that. But it's just interesting. I wonder how Giants fans feel like watching it. Like if they feel excited, if they feel
Oh,
similar, where they're like, ugh, God, this is our GM. Like this is the guy. It's like it's not horrible, but it doesn't feel great. Like I don't feel super confident.
yeah.
you know.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because now that you do, I am very close friends with the Giants fan, so I'm going to text him in real time and see
Oh,
how he feels.
see if he watched the Hard Knocks.
Yeah. Well, and also to see how he feels
Yeah.
about the Giants.
Get some live reporting.
Yeah.
Live reporting here. Yeah. Anyway, so so that was a pretty fascinating thing, though. It was nice that kind of leading into training camp. It was kind of fun to have something to watch for a few weeks
Yeah.
because it's like 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. So that
Yeah.
that was pretty. It was pretty fascinating. Yeah, the draft it didn't get as interesting, but that a lot of it makes sense because they were probably trying to they don't want to show people what's going on in their draft room.
Right. Like you become naturally closed
Yeah.
off because you don't want teams seeing your
Yeah,
plan.
and I'm certain there's a reason why they didn't do this, but I was really hoping they were going to show their reaction to when the Falcons picked Michael Penix.
Oh man, that would have been fun.
I just wanted to see an NFL room, a draft room. I just wanted to see one of them just having like everybody be like, "Oh,
like,
shit, what just happened?" You know, like.
Yeah. I remember that day too because I think we talked about it on our last one. But I went up to a regular at the bar at the restaurant I work at, and he told me the Falcons took Michael Penix. I turned to him and said, "What the fuck did you just say?
Yeah.
Like what?"
Yeah, so I just would have loved to see these professionals, these scouts, GMs, coaches in real time, just like their first honest reaction.
Yeah, right. Like what?
And I'm sure they didn't because they didn't want to embarrass the other team or like things like
Sure,
that. You know, and it's not really about that. You know, it's supposed to be about the Giants.
No, it's not.
Or whatever. But I'm like, but
it would
man.
still be, yeah, it would still be cool to like see this like still genuine human reaction. To that.
Yeah.
These guys are professionals through and through, but like when something like that happens, like your true human nature is still going to come through, and you're going to go, "What the hell?"
And most of them are football fans, you know, too.
Right,
They're obviously football fans, so it's just like as a football fan, that like that probably would have been still just a natural football fan reaction of like, "What is happening? What is going on? How did we get here?" You know, so
right.
Yeah, I just think
that's a good point. How did we get here? Michael Penix to the Falcons. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That was nuts.
Is there anything not for what we're gonna do for our other episode, but is there anything like training camp wise, anything that's we should talk about some of the contract stuff. That's right. We were gonna talk about some
I would like to talk about some of that contract stuff because I jotted some of this down the other day. We're getting a little too I don't think I don't know how to put this, but the market is becoming a little too knee-jerk reaction when it comes to quarterback extensions.
Sure.
Jordan Love getting 4 years and $220 million off of a, like, I'll be honest, like really good 10-game sample is ridiculous.
Crazy.
Like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And I actually said to somebody the other day, not yesterday, but the day before, I was like, did you see his last couple throws against the 49ers? Where in God's name was he going with those passes?
Yeah.
And you're going to give this dude $50 million a year.
Tied for the highest paid.
Tied for the highest in history based on 10 games. And now the Packers dude I follow, he did make a good point where Aaron Rodgers got the same thing after a small sample.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love could be the next Aaron Rodgers. We don't know that, but still, like, this is getting out of control with these contract extensions over small samples. That's what's driving me crazy.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I was I consume a lot of the NFL media stuff, right? One of my favorites.
We both do.
One of my favorites to watch actually is Speak. And that one has Joy Taylor and LaShawn McCoy and
I like this LaShawn McCoy.
Acho is on it, and then what's his name? The former Packers receiver, not Greg Jennings.
Jordy Nelson?
No, he was he was on the early end though, because he won Super Bowl with them and before he went to the Raiders.
Had to be Jordy Nelson.
No, that's also Jordy Nelson. Oh my God, that's so true.
That is Jordy Nelson.
It's just the Packers and the Raiders. It's just
and the Raiders.
They also have Devontae Adams. So it's
like Packers and Raiders is like the 49ers and Chiefs.
It's just like a receiver thing. Yeah, it's just like, oh, you're a Packers receiver? How about you go play for the Raiders for a little bit?
Same thing with 49ers quarterbacks. Oh, you're a 49ers quarterback? Go play for the Chiefs. Yeah. Steve Bono did it. Joe Montana did it. Alex Smith did it. Just go.
So this is an interesting part of the talking about this with the quarterback situations is you've got a couple things going on, right? So you've got the market, right? And so you'll have pundits, you'll have people being like, well, that's just the market. So that's what you have to do. That's just the market. And in some cases, you're like, that's technically true, right? Because that quarterback's going to be like, well, I'm not going to sign. And then it's like,
Right,
do we
right.
franchise them? What do we want to do? Do we try and trade? Like, what do we do
Mhm.
to get that going? Because that's already its own interesting thing. It's like
Right,
if the
right.
Dolphins said, yeah, we don't want to do that. Like, that's a lot to give you for being pretty good. Um,
Right, right.
you definitely work within our offense, work within our scheme. And then at the same time, if people were like, "Oh, they should have just gotten off of Tua," it's like, okay, well, you're not going to get nothing. You don't want to get nothing, right, for that kind
Right,
of
right.
investment. So then
You
it's
want to
like,
lose him in free agency,
and then you
and
wonder, like, one, who would trade for him though? So like this
mhm.
is the thing about like, okay, so he's going to get $53 million to his right. Well, not
Right.
53 a year, but I don't remember what the guarantees were. I think the
Yeah,
guarantees for Tua it's about 42 or something a year.
yeah, and I think
Um
Jordan Love was, I think it was like 184 was guaranteed somewhere in that neighborhood, so just over 40 plus a year.
yeah, yeah, so about the same, probably about the same
Um,
guarantees as Tua.
yeah, I'm gonna look it up
And
right now
sometimes
while
that's
you're.
the thing that people don't think about. Like that can be the important part because it's the guaranteed money that is what they're going to be on the hook for. So
Right, right, and
that's
that's kind of what's driven me crazy is like why are these teams guaranteeing so much
yeah,
money?
yeah.
Like that I'm just like, if this dude flames out, or even if he has an injury, you're on the hook now for the next 3 years at
Well,
minimum.
injury, I don't think you can make plans on injury. I think injuries they happen. I don't think it's, you got to give out the contracts and the guys deserve I mean, it's not like they don't it's not like Jordan Love and Tua didn't deserve new contracts, but what I find is interesting. Now, I think a lot of people if it came down to like, "Oh, we're not going to work, it's never going to match. Let's get rid of let's get rid of them. Let's trade them." And this is just a thought exercise. So,
Right, right, right.
I'm like when I'm thinking about it, and this can use where you can talk about value a little bit, is how many people would trade for Jordan Love versus how many people would trade for Tua? Because I think way more teams would be interested in Jordan Love than they would be
That's
for
I
Tua.
I agree with that. Yeah, 100%.
So and that's kind of fascinating because I'm like thinking about like if a team had to trade for Tua and then give him a contract, who would? Would anybody? Like, would anybody had done it? Like, if the Dolphins were like, thanks for helping us out, Tua. Like, it's not that you're doing a bad job. We just don't want to pay you top of the market. And if you don't want to accept a lesser deal, we're going to move on. Because, like, this
The
is
only
when you're talking
well,
about the market getting out of hand,
right, right.
basically what you need is teams. The only way that corrects is when teams go, no, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to pay that because
Yeah, yeah.
we think you're great, but you're not the best of the best.
Right.
And that's why I brought up Speak before. Sorry, I'm like talking forever now, but before that's why I brought up Speak because Sean McCoy brought this up was that he's like, this is crazy because he's like, in no other position are you paying guys the top of their position? Because you're like, let's not talk about the amount, right? Let's just talk about the
Right,
top of
right,
the
right.
position, right? Because
Right, right, right.
that's different. So at no other position are you paying the guy because he was pretty good, and oh well, but your contract's next up, so you just get the top of the market now.
Right,
He's like no
right.
other. It's like Justin Jefferson's getting what he's getting. Well, guess what? Darnell Mooney just signed. He didn't get close to that,
Yeah.
because it's like because they're like, well, you're not Justin Jefferson. Like everybody agrees, you're not Justin Jefferson, so we're gonna give you a good contract
It's
for
not Justin
your level
Jefferson.
of play and where the market is. It's like you figure out
Right,
with
right.
and that's
I
the
mean,
negotiation.
that's how I feel about Brandon Ayuk. Like, dude, you're not. He wants Justin Jefferson money, and I have beaten this point to death with people that I've talked to throughout the summer. Like, you had one great Pro Bowl year, dude. You are not Justin Jefferson yet,
Yeah,
but you're expecting Justin Jefferson money, and it's just not there
yeah,
because again, you've only had the one great year. And the thing is too is like the Niners aren't even offering him a bad contract, like you were just saying. It's a good contract. It's just not Justin Jefferson. Well, guess what? You're not Justin Jefferson.
yeah, yeah,
So take what's on the fucking
yeah.
table.
Well, and I know that Ayuk. I mean, obviously Ayuk was second team All Pro last year.
Second team though.
Well, yeah, but it's not that many people,
I know that.
Eh,
And the crazy thing is like what the Niners are offering him like 24 mil base salary.
Oh, base? Oh, maybe base.
Yeah, and then up to 20 between 26 and 28 hitting bonuses. Wait, why is that not enough for you? He wants like the Justin Jefferson 28 to 30 million base salary. You're not there yet. You had again the one great year.
If it were me as a fan, I would say I'd be comfortable if it went not as a base, but if it went to like max like 30. If it was like max 30 on Ayuk, base
Well, with bonuses?
base 26, 28. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even if it was 26,
Yeah.
he still said he wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
He wants like 30 million base. Like, dude, you're not there yet.
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough. And I mean, I do think it's kind of funny. So the Ayuk thing's funny because he's doing all the stuff to like get up the drama.
Evil
of
wide
it,
receivers
right?
do.
Yeah, he's doing the the calling of Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
so they
right.
don't want me, which is just not true.
It's definitely not true. Like,
or
dude,
he said that they said they don't want me.
offer on the table.
Yeah, I think it was crazy because he was like, they said they don't want me. I was like, that there's no way they went into a room with you and said, we don't want you. What they probably said is, we're not going to pay you that amount. And you get to say that's what they're telling me,
Right,
which is
right.
fine, whatever. That's an interpretation you're allowed to make. But it's like, but they did not say that. And then of course doing the, I don't worry so much about like the trade requesting because it's like Debo did the trade request thing. So
yeah, that doesn't bother me as much.
it's just a thing that happens. But it's like, it's so funny to do all these things and then you still show up to the training camp. So
right.
you're like,
So it's clear you're not like it's even clear you're hyperbolizing what they said.
You're kind of
We don't want me.
weakening
Well,
your
clearly they do.
like you're
Clearly
kind of
they do. That's why
weakening your
you're-
position when we see pictures of you standing with John Lynch and chatting with him while the players are doing things, like
Right.
I mean, it's just like are the it's just a
It's like it becomes it's like clearly they want you and you clearly still want to be there. So maybe just be a little bit less selfish and take the $25 million offer that's on the table.
Yeah, and I mean I'm gonna at least give the other end of this, I think, is look, NFL teams make a lot of money. So players trying to get as much money as they can in their shortened window of time. I mean,
I get it.
Like
I do get that. Like get your bag, but also be real.
Yeah.
At the same time. Like be real and honest with yourself.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Well, and that's the thing of like that was the thing about that Shady McCoy was talking about, where it's like no other position do we just go, oh, you just get the top of the market because you're the next guy up. Quarterbacks, we are just doing that right now. And, of course, the big question is, how sustainable is that? Where does that break eventually when teams are like,
right.
wait, we're giving
I think
how much
I think
money?
I think it'll come. If it keeps going the way it is, I think it'll be the way it's gone with running backs. It's going to oversaturate itself, and then we're going to stop giving. Teams are going to stop giving so much money to quarterbacks that have only had a single good year, or like Jordan Love, a single good half a year.
Yeah,
because we've seen so many of these running back contracts blow up in these teams' faces.
Yeah.
And I think enough of these quarterbacks that have been extended now to absurd contracts are going to blow up in these teams' faces that I think it'll course correct itself at some point.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting because so here's the thing then. Here's the other question then, because if you're somebody who's like a Packers fan, or a Dolphins fan or something like that, I guess you go like, so what should they have done? So like to me, it's like the idea is like, should I have given Jordan Love? Should I have said, hey, you know what? Look, this is gonna work out for you because if you're gonna continue to be this great, here's what we'll do: we'll give you 2 years, good amount of money, but then we get to be back into the contract talks. So like, if you're keeping up your progression and you're keeping this good, you're just going to end up getting way more money at the end of the 2 years. And now we get our real sample size. Tua's a little bit different because you do have a more of a sample size. But,
Yeah,
like,
right.
Jordan Love's more interesting in this because it was like, yeah, you've got like a 10 game of being 1 full year as a starter, but really 10 games of really exceptional play. And we've seen that before. I mean, there are times where people are like, man, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he ought to really be a starter,
Yeah, right.
so it's like, these things happen. And it's not saying that Jordan Love is that. He may be really good. He may,
Right.
he may just continue on. And it could just be the first part of the year he was figuring it out. He was getting used to it. And then he figured it out. And like now he's there and he's just going to continue to grow and get better. But it's also possible because it happens that he just had a really good stretch of 10 games. Teams are going to look at it during the offseason.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
and
Nick
then
Foles is another good example of this. Yeah. There are times where we thought Nick Foles, like, I mean, even before the Super Bowl, there was the year that he had with Chip Kelly that people were like, wow, Nick Foles, look how efficient he is. Look how, all of these things.
I've also thought of Gardner Minshew. There are times where you're like, man, Gardner Minshew should start. And then the more he starts, you go, oh, wait, no. Yeah, he's a very capable backup. That's where he should be.
Yeah. And who knows? And it could be that, oh, no, Jordan Love's a starter, but, the 10 games was a little inflated. And it's like, oh, he wasn't that good, but he's good.
Right.
It could be that.
Right.
Now you're going, but we're paying him $55 million and he's the tied for the top paid quarterback for good.
Right.
Instead of like, I mean, injury concerns aside, Joe Burrow's tied for the top, but you're like, well, yeah. You're like, sure.
Yeah, but that dude already made a Super Bowl.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're like, that makes a lot of sense. That he's
response from my Giants fan friend, by the way. He thinks he's doing a great job.
Okay.
The Giants. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So
he said I think he's doing a great job trying to round the ship into focus. Like, okay. That makes sense. It was kind of a cluster for a while. No real direction.
Yeah. It was interesting, too, on the Hard Knocks was to see them definitely want to trade with the Patriots.
Oh, yeah.
They super duper wanted that. They were definitely going to take Drake May.
Yeah, right.
Now, I know they weren't the only ones who were calling because I know other teams were trying to get that third spot. But this is why it's funny for any Patriots fans or things like that freaking out about Drake May not looking great in the for the training camp so far. It's like he's so raw, but two, there were multiple teams trying to trade up to pick this guy. So just let it sit for a little bit,
Yeah.
Let the guy ruminate, let the guy grow a little bit into it because there's quite a few teams that saw something exciting that they were willing to part with draft capital or other players to try and get that guy. More than likely draft capital since it was draft night. So, and they thought about that before. I mean, the Giants were definitely thinking about it beforehand. I mean, he talked with the Patriots GM during the combine. Yeah, they were out at the combine. And he was like, hey, like maybe I'll just go over to the Patriots and just see, like, let them know, like, if they're thinking about moving off of it, just keep us in mind. If they are thinking about moving off the pick, give us a shout. So he walked all the way around the stadium over there to talk to the GM. And so, so they were thinking about trading since the combine. Like, can we get up to third? And, and I would say, and the only other thing I'll say about that, I think people will go, oh, see, so they gave up on Daniel Jones. I'm like, I mean, I would, but like, but I wouldn't say that.
Personally, I would. Yeah, I think
I wouldn't say that that's what they're doing. I think what they're going is we now realize the limitations of him. Maybe he'll be better, right? We didn't have a good, I mean, because they talked a lot about how bad their offensive line was and,
right.
And things, but that it was just like, if we think we can improve at the position, we're going to try to, but that doesn't mean that we're giving up in the sense that we think they could still think that he can be a starter for their team and still, you can still think that you can still like a player and think that they could be a decent starter for your team while still trying to get a better player. Right?
Yeah. It's the Chiefs did it with Alex Smith and trying to still find a better quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we like Alex Smith. He's a good quarterback. He can run our system. He can,
but
but if there's an opportunity to get somebody with a little more
that can
upside.
elevate us to that next level, then we're going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, that's with the Giants stuff too. I maybe it's like short-term memory since the draft and the internet and all that, but the Giants drafting Daniel Jones was a fucking reach in the first place.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know why. Like I've come across some people who are like, I don't know, maybe the Giants should give him more of a chance. I think they've seen what they're gonna get when he's like at his best.
Yeah.
At his best, he's a solid starter.
He's average.
Again,
really.
Yeah,
He's like an average
it was a
starter.
reach in the first place. Like on draft day, people were going, the Giants picked Daniel Jones that high?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, it was a huge shock. Yeah, it was, and like people didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, I can't remember who they passed over either. It's been a while since that draft.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah. Well, we can move on to our next segment, and I'll look that up in the meantime. If you want to talk about what you're most excited about.
Well, we're gonna do that for technically would be the next episode.
So, that's
yeah. So anyway, that's fine though. It's not like we need that. But is there anything else you wanted to say for like just training camp stuff or anything like else? I mean, because obviously there's also the Trent Williams thing.
The Trent Williams thing is very concerning.
That one's tough because he still has like 3 years on the deal.
And he's already 34 years old.
Yeah. So
so what is he holding out for?
I thought he was 36.
Oh, I am actually curious to see. I watched one of the dudes I follow on YouTube made a pretty cool video about like legit quarterback.
Yeah, he's 36.
Battles.
He's 36.
36. But anyways, one dude made a good video about like actual quarterback battles. During training camp in the preseason.
Oh, actually.
And the Steelers one is actually fascinating.
Yeah.
With Justin Fields and Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And from what's coming out so far, what was Russell Wilson's team is now a dead heat.
Well, and some of that makes sense because Russell Wilson, he tweaked something, right? So he had to take some.
Yeah, his hamstring is hurt.
Yeah. They said it was super minor. They were just being cautious, but like, but still.
But I think it's more serious than they're letting on.
Maybe, but also it's just like either way, though. It gave Justin Fields time to be with the number one offense to show. I mean, because that's the thing with Justin Fields is he's so athletically gifted. It is hard for that to not pop, especially during training camp, right?
Right.
Like, it's not a full game. You're not getting hit. You can just go, And
right.
So like that kind of athleticism, it can really. So I'm not. It's kind of interesting, and it's like the Steelers are tied to neither of them. It's like they're both there for a year.
And Mike Tomlin there was an interview clip I saw. Mike Tomlin like wanted it to be Russell Wilson's team because after like the revolving door of quarterbacks that they had after Ben left. He said he wanted experience and stability, which I totally get. But man, if Fields is popping off the way that he is, you can't ignore that at all. And especially if that hamstring injury with Wilson keeps on lingering or even gets worse as training camp and preseason goes along when he starts taking real hits. You really got to start looking at Justin Fields and going, man, maybe this guy should be the starter.
Well, and
so that'll be interesting to watch as the preseason progresses.
The Steelers are kind of in the same spot as with the Jets, is that their quarterback play was so bad.
Yeah.
The Steelers, you're like, how did you get?
How did you win 10 games?
Like, Tomlin is I don't get it. Like,
I don't get it either.
How does he do that? Like, I don't, man. It's just what Tomlin can do is crazy because it's just like how have you never had a losing season for one?
Right.
Like,
and I watched obviously it was only the first week of the season and we didn't know, but I watched clips of that 49ers Steelers game in week 1 and I was watching that and going, how the hell did that Steelers team win 10 games?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, it doesn't
They
make
were
sense.
so bad against the 49ers.
But then even the Jets won 7 games, right?
Without Rodgers, with freaking
like statistically the worst quarterback play.
Right, Zach Wilson and whoever the hell else
you literally
played
had
quarterback.
the worst quarterback play, but the Steelers were not. Kenny Pickett was not good. They were not that far behind.
No, they were not.
I mean, they were a little bit better, which is probably why they were able to get into the playoffs. So both of those teams, yeah, that's kind of. It'll be interesting. Now, there's no quarterback competition for the Jets, though. So where it's interesting,
right.
but like the Steelers, they actually may be in a can't really lose situation because if either Fields or Russell Wilson just give them average quarterback play, it's going to be so much better
than what they had. Yeah,
so
like they could compete. They could be legit, almost be Super Bowl contenders if they just get average.
Who knows? Play. Like if and now of course this is the danger that we do is going back and going, well, because of based off of last year. So it's like, well, that also means that how good they were in the other facets of football have to remain that way. That's never a guarantee. But it's like, but yes,
or at least be close to what they were doing last year.
You feel like defensive wise, it's probably going to still be there. There's not really a lot of reason to think it wouldn't. Their running game was doing really well last year.
Yeah,
too.
I think at this junction in history, it's kind of stupid to expect the Steelers defense to be anything other than top 10, top 12.
Yeah. So
they're going to be there no matter what.
Right. So even if the defense goes back so little, but their quarterback play jumps up 15 spots
to average from low average to even average.
Yeah. That could be a huge difference. Now we'll see. I mean, because obviously the AFC North isn't an easy division either.
Right. No, it's not. And the Bengals, if Joe Burrow's healthy, they'll be back. The Browns are still good, even though we all rightfully so hate Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And
then of course you have the Ravens.
The Ravens are the Ravens.
Yeah. All four teams could have, easily be play. Well, three of them were.
Three of them were.
Three were.
And the Bengals were making a threat with Jake Browning at one point.
That's crazy. What a different, what a division. So that's the thing that's obviously going to be hard for Pittsburgh too, is fighting through that, but they've been able to do it before. So
right, people have made that argument before. Oh, Pittsburgh still has to deal with the NFC or the AFC North. Tomlin finds a way to do it, man. I don't know how, I don't know why, but he finds a way to do it.
Figure it out.
Until he proves otherwise, I'm going to give that man the benefit of the doubt. And at least, even if some of these teams are superior, that man is going to find a way to split every single AFC North game and go 3-3 in the division.
Right? Yeah. So that'll be a fascinating thing though throughout the training camp to see if Tomlin does change his tune, but then also like how Russell Wilson deals with. This is actually the funny thing. Actually, I was just because we're talking about Russell Wilson, because I live in Seattle. The funniest thing about Russell Wilson, and I was just talking with a Seahawks fan about this, but this is definitely something that I noticed sort of as a majority. I mean, obviously I don't know if it's a majority, but it was so funny when Russell Wilson left, how quickly people just turned on him. And not
really,
not in the way, like how people like burned like LeBron jerseys or like things like that. Not like in an angry way, just sort of like they just stopped caring about him. And they were just like almost relieved in a lot of ways.
Really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It was, yeah. And I think I likened it to like getting out of a relationship. You didn't know you wanted to get out of it until you were out of it. It's like you got out of it and you're like, oh man, why do I feel better? Like, oh,
yeah,
and I think that's kind of where it got to with Russell Wilson, because he's so one, he's very quirky.
Blah.
Yeah, he's so blah. He's not very Seattle, I would say, in a lot of ways.
No.
It doesn't help that he's.
I know exactly what you're saying.
I mean, he's also very religious. Yeah. Seattle's not super religious either.
Yeah. Seattle's one of the least religious cities in this country.
Right. So it's and not like people hated him for that. I just mean it's just like there's a disconnect personality wise. Right. I think.
Like and like you just said, like, oh yeah, I didn't realize how happy I would be. It's like it's not like you hate that person. It's just like, oh, they're just. I don't hate them, but they're not good for me.
and then as the time,
Like, they're not a bad person, but
and
they're
then
not good for
and then
me.
so as it kept going, it kept going, and it kept being like, okay, we're just not there to compete for Super Bowls, and he
Right,
leaves,
right.
it just feels right. You're just like, oh, good. We didn't
Right.
drag it on more, we
Right.
because
We didn't keep Russell around for like another 3 years when he clearly didn't have it anymore, and we didn't want him
right, and he wasn't
around.
working with us, like maybe it's just like you're not
Right.
working here either. I mean, now of course he hasn't really worked elsewhere either, but
Denver.
but anyway, it was just that was a really funny thing of just like understanding that the people were like, I mean, not that people didn't love Russ, that they didn't support Russ, but like as soon as he was gone, it was just sort of like,
I was
cool.
gonna say, I mean, I came across at their peak, I came across enough Seahawks fans that swore their life to that man.
Yeah.
Especially after they won that Super Bowl.
But I think I think the stuff that I think what's interesting with that is like also just like the defensive players, the Richard Shermans and things like that would say.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's
Yeah, especially Richard Sherman. Like Richard Sherman has been hugely
but it
critical
seemed
of
to
him.
kind of ring true. But I think with the fans, it started to ring true. People were like, I think he was kind of right. They're like,
Yeah, 'cause when it first started, it was especially when Sherman started to first talk about it, people were like, oh, he was just angry and bitter that he was kind of forced out and then he joined the 49ers. I love the fact that he was on the 49ers. That's awesome. And weird, and this actually kind of almost went along with even what Richard Sherman was saying. That dude seems more loyal to the 49ers than he ever was to the Seahawks.
Yeah, I don't.
And it seems like Russell Wilson was like a big factor.
Yeah, because it was sort of like you're picking the wrong way to go with this. Now we're not going to be able to keep our defense, and he's not good enough to take you over. And it looks like that was true, really. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
So, so not that it wasn't that they just didn't choose him personally, but it was just like you're not choosing the defense. So we want you to.
Right. And maybe even if you think Sherman took it too personally, maybe he did at one point, doesn't mean he was wrong.
But still, like, I mean, I think if you're talking about, Sherman, I'm not sure where, Sherman still lives in the Seattle area last time I knew, but, but like people, like when they're talking about those times, they're talking about Richard Sherman. They're talking about the Bobby Wagners. They're talking about the, Earl Thomas.
Cam Chancellors.
And offensive wise, you're basically just talking about Marshawn Lynch. I mean, he is beloved. I mean, now it helps. I mean, he's part owner of the Kraken. He's like super, invested with the Seattle people, which is great because he's also still super invested for Oakland, because that's where he's from. But like, you feel that investment. Russell Wilson, even though you could say he's made investments, he's always felt like he's doing it as a business decision. He's just going, oh, this is just smart. I'm going to do this. Marshawn Lynch feels like, yeah, fuck yeah, Seattle, let's go,
Yeah, right. He like, genuinely loves that city,
and so it feels that way. Yeah, Russell Wilson felt like it's like, oh, it's just a good because I think I don't know if he still is, but he used to be like part owner of like the Sounders, Russell Wilson, but he never felt
I remember that.
Never felt like, oh yeah, because I'm so into the city, I'm so in. It's like, well, that's just a smart thing to do, so I'm going to do that. Like when he really tried to get his podcast to go, because I remember he was on Bill Simmons' podcast once. He was like, man, I got to take tips from you, Bill, on like how to like, be a successful on podcast. I'm like, so everything just you feel too calculated. Like, so you don't feel invested in the place, like that you care about the place. You just care about like, how am I looking career-wise? And not that you can't take some of that into account. Like that's also important, but you can also still have passion. It doesn't feel like you have a I think he has a passion to play football, but I don't think he necessarily. It didn't ever really felt like he had a passion for that team.
Or that city.
It's like you want to play football, you enjoy playing football, you're enjoying what football is giving you, but you don't feel that invested in the place. I don't know.
And maybe that's why Seattle fans were.
That's what I mean.
Maybe that's why it was easier for them to move on.
Yeah.
Because like once they got out of it, like, was he really invested in our city and our culture and people? It doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's actually good that he's gone.
Yeah. Well, that was way off topic for something that happened a few years ago. But anyway, so I think
that stemmed from legit talk of the
That's true.
Steelers training camp.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, and also I guess in that sense, like where maybe Tomlin will then also maybe that kind of if Russ is still like that, I mean I think he is, and may make it easier for him to move off of it because maybe he'll be like, I'm not actually as sold on this guy as I thought I was.
Right.
You
And
know?
maybe like, and Justin Fields, obviously I don't know the guy, but he feels more like a dude that would absolutely invest in the city and its
Well,
people.
he
because
wanted to be there
genuinely
too.
loves
That
being
was
there.
like,
He wanted to go there.
I mean,
yeah.
basically the Bears did him a solid. You
Right,
know,
right.
They were like, we
'Cause he
think we
turned
could get,
down-
we could probably get
I saw
more.
last night that
Yeah.
he turned down offers to, or like trade proposals to the Raiders. Smart.
Yeah.
Fuck. There was another one that was like super obvious where you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe it was the Saints, I think.
Maybe.
Where he was like, yeah, no, I'm not going there.
Yeah. But no, it's like, but yeah, that the Bears didn't have to listen to that. The Bears, because they had all the rights, they could have just been like, yeah,
Right,
well,
right.
oh well, they're going to give us a 3rd round pick, so we're going to do that.
Right.
And so, but
Yeah,
they-
but
they
he
didn't.
wanted to, like you said, Justin Fields, like the Steelers were his like top choice or up there of where he wanted to go if he was going to be traded.
Yeah, and so he feels more like, no, I'm excited. I want to be.
Yeah,
This is where I
and
wanted
it's
to
weird.
go.
It's like I watched some training camp clips of him last night while I was thinking about what we were going to talk about, and I was like, man, he genuinely seems ecstatic to be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He like, obviously he's only like 24 or 25, but I was just like, he looks younger, he looks happier than he ever did in Chicago.
Yeah.
Maybe this will work out, and I would love it to, because I would love to see like an athlete like that just keep playing football for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, so I would love to see that. I hope it works out for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seemed genuinely happy to be there.
Yep. Well, folks, I think that's probably good for this episode. Yeah,
Off-season shenanigans, let's call it. Almost.
Hey, that's a good title.
Hey.
Off-season shenanigans. So yeah, thanks for listening. Our next episode, we are going to be talking about what we are most excited for this season. So
I am pumped to get
for the
into
entire
that.
season. So we're just gonna each give our top kind of 3 things that we're each excited about for the upcoming season, what we want to see happen, or what who knows what. So we'll see. I don't know what.
It's
boxes
genuine
are.
excitement, I think. But I definitely have 3 things that I am excited about.
Yeah. So tune in for that. I know we have big spacing in between things, but we're at least gonna have 2 episodes coming out, probably, pretty
Back
close
to
to each
back.
other. So
Yeah.
good on us. That now that we're in training camp for ourselves. So,
We kind of are.
podcasting training camp.
Podcasting
Yeah.
training camp.
So, thanks for listening, folks. So don't be afraid to share us around, tell people how great we are, and how smart we are with football. We're just so smart.
We are genuinely close to genius level.
So smart, and you just can't you can't get this anywhere else. Minus
really can't.
Minus all the other places you can get it. But if you don't count those places, you can't get it anywhere else. So,
No.
Yeah.
You can't get these raw takes anywhere else, guys.
If you pretend like no other football content exists, we're the only ones doing this. So think about that. Think about that. Thanks for listening to the Brothers Blitz podcast. We'll catch you all next time.
Peace.